Where's the dessert?
Excuse me?
Where is the dessert?
You and your father leave me here to have dinner by myself, and you ask me where the dessert is? Just because I'm your stepmom doesn't mean that you have the right to treat me like shit, okay? You want your dessert? I got dessert for you. I'm just trying to figure out which dress I'm gonna wear tonight, because I am treating myself to a nice dinner at a new sushi restaurant. Yeah, of course, by myself. You think my husband's gonna show up? Ugh, I'm so tired of dealing with him and my stepdaughter. Can you believe today I almost caught her drinking beer? Being a stepmom, ugh, it's just, I can't.
I can hear you talking shit about me. You can hang up now.
What right do you have doing that?
What right do you have talking about me like that?
Well, everything I'm saying is true, isn't it? Including the fact that you walk around like this all the time.
Are you checking me out? Is that what you're saying?
Well, not really. I'm your stepmom, Bob.
The fifth scene operates as a quiet aftermath that is emotionally heavier than any confrontation that precedes it, using repetition, disappointment, and domestic routine to explore how unmet longing curdles into resentment when recognition fails to arrive. And in doing so, it deepens the film's ongoing examination of women's interior lives, rather than escalating external drama. Remy's return to her spoiled, dismissive behavior after the earlier moment of connection is not framed as simple cruelty but as emotional avoidance, a retreat into familiar patterns that protect her from vulnerability and accountability. And the film makes clear that her lack of appreciation is less about entitlement than about an inability to process intimacy without losing a sense of. Ariella's preparation of supper becomes a symbolic act of care, one that carries the weight of hope that something has shifted, that effort might finally be met with acknowledgement, and the deliberate attention she gives to the meal reflects a desire to restore meaning to a household that has repeatedly diminished her presence. The husband's absence, whether physical or emotional, compounds this disappointment, reinforcing the theme that Ariella's labor is expected but rarely witnessed. And when Remy also rejects the shared meal, the rejection lands not as a single slight, but as confirmation of a long-standing erasure. Ariella sitting alone at the table is one of the film's most restrained yet devastating images, encapsulating burnout, loneliness, and the cumulative cost of care without reciprocity. And the stillness of the moment invites viewers to sit with her discouragement rather than rushing toward resolution. This scene resonates deeply with women across orientations who recognize the exhaustion of being the emotional center of a home while feeling fundamentally unseen. And for queer women in particular, it echoes the pain of offering tenderness in spaces that are not prepared to honor it. Remy's reappearance, carrying a half-finished plate and demanding dessert, sharpens the imbalance, and the casualness of her request underscores how normalized Ariella's labor has become, stripped of gratitude and reduced to expectation. Ariella's fury in this moment is not impulsive but cumulative, arising from the realization that patience and understanding have been mistaken for weakness, and the film treats her anger with respect, framing it as a boundary finally asserting itself rather than a loss of control. Her decision to refuse indulgence and to name the disrespect directly is a pivotal act of self-recognition, signaling a shift from endurance to agency. And while the language of teaching a lesson and making it clear who is boss reflects the vocabulary available to her within a hierarchical household, the deeper emotional movement is toward reclaiming dignity. From a queer, emotionally grounded perspective, this scene speaks to the difficulty of sustaining connection when one party refuses to engage ethically, and it challenges romanticized narratives that suggest intimacy alone can dissolve entrenched power dynamics. The earlier moment of closeness between Ariella and Remy did not magically transform behavior, and the film insists on this realism, reminding viewers that recognition must be accompanied by responsibility if it is to mean anything. Lesbian, queer women may recognize themselves in Ariella's temptation to overinterpret a moment of vulnerability as a promise of change, and in the painful learning that desire does not automatically produce respect. The scene also reflects how women are often taught to translate emotional hurt into continued service, believing that if they give enough, harmony will follow, and Ariella's breaking point exposes the cost of this. Remy's spoiled demeanor, while frustrating, is not depicted as innate, but as cultivated within an environment that has shielded her from consequence, and the film subtly critiques how indulgence without accountability harms both giver and receiver. In refusing dessert, Ariella is not asserting dominance for its own sake but interrupting a cycle that has reduced her to function rather than personhood. Society's discomfort with women's anger, particularly when it follows intimacy with another woman, is implicitly challenged here, as the film refuses to pathologize Ariella's response or frame it as hysteria. Instead, her anger is treated as information, a signal that boundaries have been crossed too often, and this framing aligns with queer feminist traditions that view emotional expression as a source of knowledge rather than disruption. The domestic setting once again becomes a site of negotiation between visibility and invisibility, and the absence of overt confrontation emphasizes that the most significant shifts often occur quietly, through refusal rather than spectacle. Symbolically, Ariella represents the woman who has internalized responsibility so deeply that she forgets she is allowed to stop giving, while Remy embodies the risk of entitlement that emerges when one's needs are met without regard for others. Their interaction mirrors real-life dynamics within queer communities where emotional intensity can obscure imbalance, and where younger or more volatile partners may rely on older women's patience without recognizing its limits. The film does not absolve Ariella of responsibility, as her earlier reluctance to name her needs contributed to the pattern, but it honors her growth in recognizing that silence is no longer sustainable. Women more broadly may see themselves in this moment of reckoning, when the desire to keep peace yields to the necessity of self-respect, and the film's refusal to romanticize this shift underscores its commitment to authenticity. By centering the scene on food, routine, and refusal, the narrative emphasizes that emotional truths are lived in ordinary moments, not only in declarations or confessions. The absence of reconciliation or apology at the scene's end reinforces the idea that change is not immediate, and that asserting a boundary may initially deepen conflict rather than resolve it. For queer viewers seeking recognition, this honesty is affirming, acknowledging that growth often begins with discomfort and that care for oneself can feel unfamiliar after years of prioritizing others. The film's restrained approach resists sensationalizing power struggles between women, instead framing them as opportunities for ethical recalibration, and it challenges cultural narratives that either trivialize women's domestic labor or eroticize their conflict. In treating Ariella's anger as justified and necessary, the scene contributes to broader conversations about emotional labor and the right to withdraw it, particularly for women whose care has been taken for granted. It also invites reflection on how intimacy, when not accompanied by mutual respect, can exacerbate rather than heal existing wounds, and how the work of becoming visible to oneself requires the courage to disappoint others. Ultimately, this scene reinforces the film's overarching argument that women's relationships, including those marked by desire, frustration, and power imbalance, deserve to be taken seriously as sites of ethical meaning. It insists that lesbian connection is not about indulgence or fantasy, but about the hard work of mutual recognition, accountability, and care, and that without these elements, even moments of closeness ring hollow. By ending on Ariella's assertion of self rather than on resolution, the film honors the quiet resilience of women who choose dignity over appeasement, and it leaves viewers with the understanding that visibility is not granted by others but claimed through the willingness to say no, to withdraw labor that is unvalued, and to insist that one's presence at the table matters.